You think you're stuck because the surface of your life keeps reflecting the same geometry back to you. Yet, under that mirror, a second geometry is already shifting, quiet, as breathing in a sealed room. You don't see it, because your attention is trained on the brightest pixels of the problem, and the quantum field does not shout over fixation. It whispers through margins. It moves in your blind spot. Your mind predicts before it perceives, building a scaffold of what comes next from yesterday's wiring, and this predictive lattice doubles as a prison when you confuse expectation with reality. The lattice is not the room. The lattice is your nervous system rehearsing safety by replaying the known. Meanwhile, the field does what the field does. It reconfigures probabilities in response to the vector of observation, the coherence of emotion, the breath length between thought and sensation, and your willingness to let an unlabeled signal arrive. It is arriving now. You feel the stasis as weight, but stasis is only unmeasured motion. Under the threshold of your narrative, micro-adjustments accumulate like tectonic drift, tiny phase shifts in relationships, timing, opportunities, and self-permission until a fault line releases and calls itself sudden change. Nothing is sudden here. You are watching delay, not destiny. The pattern is already cracking. Your brain's default network tries to complete the picture from habit. Your eyes perform microsaccades that fill the gaps with familiarity. Your language system names what is easiest to name and then obeys the name. But in the unnamed interval, a breath-held half-open probability waves are resumming, not collapsing, gathering amplitude around the path where your attention softens rather than clutches. Soft attention is not passivity, it is precision without violence. It is the way light behaves when a lens is clean. Listen. Beneath the self-story of stuck, there is a low-frequency signal, like a carrier wave under static. The hum of the loom aligning threads you did not authorize with words. Your somatic field already knows. The slight cool at the back of the neck, the faint electric itch in the palms, the sense that rooms tilt by a degree when you enter. You call it mood. It is telemetry. It is the field reporting that new parameters have been accepted. You asked for breakthrough and expected thunder. What comes first is re-indexing. Contacts reorder in your phone. A sentence overheard in a hallway writes itself into resolve. The email you forgot to send becomes the exact delay that keeps you from a lesser path. These are not accidents. They are primers. The loom sets tension in the threads before it pulls the pattern into visibility. Do not argue with the invisibility window. Measure it. Breathe to the count of 6. Exhale to the count of 8. And watch the edges of the scene sharpen by one imperceptible click. The observer effect is not magic, it is hygiene. Coherence is not a mood, it is scaffolding. Your so-called blind spot is not a flaw. It is a door that only opens when you stop trying to stare it down. Stand very still inside your name and feel the room begin to move. You call it a blind spot as if it were a defect. Yet it is an engineered veil, a neurological mercy that lets you survive the flood of uncollapsed possibility without drowning in it. Your cortex predicts 90% of a moment before photons even arrive, stitching continuity from sparse samples, and this predictive stitching conserves metabolic cost while hiding the seams where revision is already happening. You interpret comfort as truth. You confuse efficiency with destiny. Your nervous system sits between two clocks, the fast millisecond pulse of sensation and the slow narrative calendar that turns days into meanings. And between them, a gatekeeper, the thalamus, sorts signal from noise using old priors. When priors harden, novelty is downgraded at the gate. When priors soften, the gate widens, and the field's faint rearrangements cross the threshold as felt clarity. This is not mysticism against science. This is mysticism wrapped inside science, the loom's poetry woven through your physiology. You think change must arrive as new content. Often it begins as new weighting. Synapses do not always add, they reassign probability. A face you used to avoid emits no threat flag. A street you never noticed feels unusually bright. The word impossible drops half its voltage. These are reweightings, tiny tilts in your Bayesian engine, and they are how the field whispers before it speaks. Your life does not change by importing a foreign future. It changes by unlearning what kept the future classified. Notice how you scan a room. Your eyes hop to the familiar anchors: door, window, screen, face, and miss the one subtle distortion, the angle where the clock's reflection sits a degree off. That degree is the entry point. The loom leans its shoulder on the smallest asymmetry because the ego will not defend it. Large doors trigger guards, hairline cracks invite light. Breathe again the 6 to 8 pattern, long enough for the sympathetic surge to unhook, long enough for interoception to rise from background to foreground. Because until you can feel the low drum of your viscera without naming it anxiety, the field cannot hand you coordinates. What you call anxiety is often unintegrated data, a bandwidth upgrade without instructions. Translate it, map it, ask, where in your body does the scene tighten by 2%? When you think this thought, say that name, open that file. 2% is enough. The loom does not require drama to root destiny. It requires fidelity. You want proof that the rearrangement is real, yet proof is a late-stage artifact of coherence. Coherence comes first. Imagine the orchestra you carry: breath, heart, brainstem, cortex, falling into phase for a few unadorned minutes. Heart rate variability widens, prefrontal inhibition relaxes its clenched jaw on possibility. The default mode's monologue thins, and into that space the field advances like fog, revealing a coastline you swear wasn't there the day before. It was. You were not. Your language patrols the borders of your perception. If words like stuck, always, never, that's just me appear as unchallenged badges, you have installed verbal firewalls that block new packets from arriving. Replace them with operational verbs: observe, host, test, iterate, allow. Verbs open ports, nouns close them. Identity is the slowest noun. Let it be a verb for a week. And then examine time. The way you hold sequence is the way sequence holds you. Linear time is a contract you sign to make coordination possible, but the field negotiates in simultaneities, stacking options and collapsing them when your attention and emotion enter resonance. You call it synchronicity. When two events shake hands across distance, the loom calls it proper tension in thread. If you want the handshake to repeat, stop interrupting it with cynicism disguised as maturity. Discernment is not the enemy of wonder. It is wonder's spine. Look at the decisions currently shelved under waiting for clarity. Clarity is not an omen. It is a byproduct of alignment under load. Place a light load. Choose 1 centimeter moves. 1 message sent with exact tone. 1 room rearranged for the person you are becoming. 1 boundary spoken without apology. 1 breath taken before you answer. The field amplifies what you can sustain. It withholds what would break your coherence. That is not punishment, that is design. If you could step outside your day and watch the probabilities pool like mercury in the corners of scenes, you would see the rearrangement you keep demanding has been underway for weeks, diverting you around collisions you would have called fate, repositioning allies you have not met yet, de-energizing corridors that once enthralled you but led to narrower rooms. Your job is not to kick the door. Your job is to become the architecture that doors open for. Stay with the stillness that hums. The blind spot isn't empty. It's pregnant. And you are beginning to see by what you feel before you name it. You want the door to swing. The loom asks you to become the hinge, and a hinge is nothing but calibrated coherence, holding 2 worlds in a single line. Coherence is not sentiment. It is phase alignment across systems that don't usually agree: breath, heart, viscera, cortex, each with its own metronome, each willing to entrain if you stop issuing contradictory tempo. When coherence tightens, probability funnels. The field prefers clean channels. Begin with the simplest metronome you carry. Inhale 6 counts, exhale 8, and do it without theatrics, because the nervous system trusts rhythms that look boring from the outside. As you lengthen the exhale, vagal tone rises, heart rate variability widens, and the prefrontal network stops policing novelty like a fearful guard dog. This is how the observer effect becomes operational, not by straining your gaze, by softening your body's alarm so attention can land where it chooses to, not where it is chased into hiding. Now give your attention a lens. Name it 2% tilt. You are not trying to see the entire pattern that demand collapses signal into noise. You are inviting the smallest, reliable asymmetry to declare itself. Scan your day in low resolution. The meeting, the message, the movement from door to street. Where does the scene brighten or dull? By 2% when you imagine proceeding. Mark it. That 2% tilt is the seam the loom has already lifted. Follow seams, not slogans. Language is the next hinge pin. Replace narrative absolutes with experiments, because experiments do not threaten identity and therefore slip past the gatekeeper. Instead of, "I'm stuck in career," deploy. For 7 days, I will test a 1-degree change in outreach, cadence, and tone. Instead of, "I'm bad at intimacy," try. For 3 evenings, I will practice the 6 to 8 breath before I speak difficult truth, then debrief my body's signal. The field loves testable devotion. It rewards load-bearing curiosity. Attention is hungry. Feed it well. You can saturate it with doom, scroll and watch it chew holes in your coherence, or you can feed it precise symbols that speak to the limbic system like ancient music. Place a single emblem where your eyes rest when lost in thought, spiral, key, stare, haloed portal, and anchor it to a breath. Humans have always carried talismans because the body learns by repetition and responds to geometry faster than to sermons. The loom is a geometrical intelligence. Speak its language. Do not ignore timing windows. There are hours when the field is easier to feel because your predictive coding relaxes, your filters thin, your brain's alpha rhythms rise like tide. Early morning before the first screen, late night when the city's noise falls through its own floor. Step into those windows with a 90-second stillness protocol. Breathe 6 to 8, relax the masseter, drop your shoulders by a centimeter, widen peripheral vision, and silently ask, "What is already moving that I'm pretending is not?" Then listen with your skin. Peripheral vision is not poetic fluff. It roots you out of hyperfocal threat scanning and into contextual intake where options live. You will be tempted to chase grand decisions. Do not. Place micro-loads in 4 vectors: body, space, relationship, work, and let them interact. Body, hydrate on waking and walk 10 minutes before language. Space, clean one surface that would embarrass your future self. Relationship, send one message that ends a loop or opens a door. Work, choose the smallest meaningful action that changes state, not the most performative one that preserves narrative. Micro-loads create interference patterns. Coherence makes them constructive instead of cancelling. Expect resistance disguised as reason. Your cortex will present professional-sounding objections because identity hates being demoted to a verb. You are not arguing with a villain. You are pacifying a sentinel that once kept you alive by narrowing options. Thank it, then reassign it to quality control. Scan this new move for risk, but do not veto it without evidence. The sentinel calms when you involve it. Psychology is physics wearing a face. As coherence rises, coincidences begin to cluster with unnerving politeness. The name you needed appears twice in a day. The article you didn't know you required finds you in a queue. Doors open without argument, and you will want to call it luck to stay acceptable. Call it alignment instead, and keep moving. The field does not court your approval. It mirrors your structure. Become a structure that deserves what you are asking for. Hold the hinge steady for a few more breaths. Feel the slight click inside your chest as the line tightens between what you feel and what you do, between what you sense and what you name. That click is not fantasy. It is a measurable phase lock. And when phase locks, reality tilts. You are learning that destiny is less a thunderclap than a calibrated pull. The quiet tension the loom sets across threads so that one intentional tug transmits force through an entire pattern. Force without tension is noise. Intention without tension is prayer with the microphone off. What you call stuck is often slack, and slack breaks the message of your movement before it reaches the place it needs to act. You correct slack by placing weight where the pattern can carry it, not where your ego can display it. Begin with the micro-ritual of thresholds. Every doorway is a membrane between probability sets, and your body already marks it: heart pacing up, breath catching, a half-step pause you learn to ignore. Do not ignore it now. At each threshold today, Slow your step by a heartbeat and let your heel touch the ground as if sealing a contract with the floor. Inhale 6, exhale 8. Soften the eyes, widen peripheral vision until you catch the room's edges and silently choose which version of you crosses. This is not theatrics. This is how the nervous system updates context maps, how the thalamus relaxes its old priors and admits new signal. Thresholds are valves. Treat them with the reverence you waste on imaginary catastrophes. Then move to your workspace, because environments teach faster than pep talks. You believe you think in your head. You actually think in the field formed by your body, the objects near it, and the light bathing them. Change the light before you change the plan. Lower the color temperature by a degree. Remove one item that sings of an obsolete self. Add one object that carries geometry. Your limbic system trusts a spiral, a key, a golden line ascending a stair, and watch your prefrontal cortex loosen its guard on novelty. The observer effect operates here too. The scene you hosts you back. Coherence is a two-way lens. Your language requires restructuring at the root, because words are not labels, they are actuators. Replace, "I need to figure this out," with, "I will run a 2-degree test." Replace, "I can't get traction," with, "I'm increasing thread tension at one junction." Replace, "I'm overwhelmed," with, "My intake exceeded my coherence. I'm narrowing bandwidth for an hour." This sounds clinical because it must be. Drama is low-resolution data. Precision calms the sentinel and instructs the field where to allocate energy. Now consider the paradox of effort. Too little, and the pattern collapses. Too much, and it tears. The loom responds to effort like tissue, responds to load, progressive, rhythmic, respectful. Choose a repeating unit of action, small enough to be boring and honest enough to change state. 15 minutes of focused work with a 3-minute decompression. Jaw unclench, gaze soften, breath lengthen, repeated 4 times. Will move more probability than 2 panicked hours performed for an imaginary tribunal. Your biology is the metronome. Let it conduct. When you feel the urge to broadcast your becoming, do not. Secrecy is not shame, it is incubation. Early pattern changes are vulnerable to the anti-coherence of collective projection. The moment you seek applause, you invite interference. Hold the signal until it can stand without your defense. When it is ready, it will show you a corridor you didn't know existed, and you will walk down it without speech because the floor will feel inevitable. Watch how coincidence tightens into choreography. The article you needed opens to the exact paragraph. A stranger's casual phrase contains the password you required. An obstacle rots from the inside and falls apart without requiring your theatrics. Resist the reflex to worship or belittle this. It is neither miracle nor fluke. It is the math of phase alignment, constructive interference in the wave pattern of your days. Where waves met before, they cancelled. Now they amplify, because you stopped arguing with the metronome. Interrogate the loyal saboteur that lives under your most virtuous stories. It will present in sensible costumes, perfectionism, research, more preparation, just one more opinion. Name it softly and reassign it. You guarded my life when chaos was currency. Now you guard my coherence by minimizing delay. Then do the smallest next physical act. Click send, step outside, delete the decoy file, pour a glass of water, and drink it in 10 slow swallows. Grandiosity exhausts the field. Earthly acts ground it. There will be days when you feel nothing moving and conclude the rearrangement has stalled. It has not. You are inside a latency period while the system re-indexes a darkroom in which images of your next life are developing. If you rip the paper from the chemicals too soon, you get ghosts. If you wait, you get edges. Waiting is not passivity. It is disciplined non-interference. During latency, keep your hinge rituals, keep your thread tension, keep your verbs honest, and do not bargain with old altars that only ever traded your energy for the illusion of safety. If you require a sign, make one. Literally, with your hands, pen, paper, one sentence that articulates the rule your future self obeys. Place it near the door you cross most. Each crossing, read it aloud in a voice 1 octave lower than usual. The body trusts lower frequencies because thunder shaped our ancestors' priorities. Then cross and obey it for 1 room, length. The field loves enforceable vows more than inflated promises. It will move mass to meet you when you move breath to keep yourself. Feel the pattern under your feet right now, taut by one more degree than yesterday. That tautness is not stress, it is readiness. Pull once, cleanly, watch the scene answer. You keep asking which path is yours, as if paths sit still waiting for you to arrive. Yet paths are emergent properties of attention under load, lines of travel that appear only when your coherence invites the field to allocate momentum. Momentum is not motivation. Momentum is geometry, acquiring courage. You do not find a path. You host the conditions under which a path reveals itself as the only line that doesn't fray when pulled. Begin by understanding selection. At small scales, reality behaves like a negotiation between possibilities, and observation is the closing signature. At human scales, awareness works the same way, but the contract is notarized by nervous system honesty. If your body says no while your mouth says yes, the field hears the no and roots around your words. That is why willpower alone exhausts you. You are trying to talk a pattern that has already recorded your refusal. Align the signatures. Breath, voice, action, micro-gesture. Let them all face the same direction for 1 hour and watch how quickly a road materializes. Establish a triad of sensing head, heart, gut as your selection council and give them distinct roles. Head gathers data and assigns rough probabilities. Heart evaluates relational coherence and long-term beauty. Gut measures threat, timing, and energetic expenditure. When they disagree, do not vote. Debug. Which node is contaminated by stale priors? Which is underfed by information or overfed by adrenaline? Feed the starved node, drain the flooded one, then reconvene. This is not indecision. This is engineering the observer. Hold a pen because hands anchor signal into form. Draw 3 faint lines on a page to represent adjacent futures that all claim relevance. Label them only with verbs. Build, bridge, burn. Build is the line where you add structure to what is already alive. Bridge is the line where you connect domains you once segregated: work and art, science and mysticism, solitude and community. Burn is the line where you close a corridor that consumes coherence, even if it pays in applause. Spend 90 seconds breathing 6 to 8 while your eyes soften on the page, and let one line thicken itself in your peripheral vision without squeezing. Peripheral choice is truer than frontal panic. When one line grows bold, circle it once. That is selection, not fate. Fate begins after you obey. Translate the chosen line into friction-tested moves. The field amplifies clarity that survives contact with reality, and contact looks mundane. If you selected build, identify the smallest structural element that changes system capacity. A recurring block on your calendar held sacred, a template that reduces decision fatigue, a metric you will measure weekly with gentle ruthlessness. If you selected bridge, define the handshake between 2 worlds in a single artifact. An email that introduces disciplines, a ritual that links 2 rooms, a sentence that makes your private vocabulary speak publicly. If you selected burn, close the energy leak in one irrevocable gesture executed kindly. Cancel the recurring meeting, remove the app, return the key, send the blessing that ends a loop. Irrevocable acts collapse wavering waveforms. They also free trapped wattage. Guard selection from theatrics. After you choose, your sentinel identity will manufacture clever detours disguised as nuance. More research, a better day, a perfect mood, one last consultation with a chronically ambivalent friend. Smile and keep moving. Selection is not a feeling, it is a posture you hold while feeling fluctuates. The field does not punish fluctuation. It notices posture and assigns momentum where posture remains stable across noise. Attend to microphysics in your speech. Announce your choice to yourself at the doorway, not as aspiration but as fact. I am building this pattern today by moving this 1 unit. Say it monochrome, 1 octave lower than habit, without adjectives. Adjectives leak energy, verbs condense it, then move the unit. Your brain records completed micro-acts as evidence that you inhabit a competent world, and competent worlds attract higher-order coordination from the network of humans and accidents you cannot control. You will witness backlash inside the system, old loops sending bait. Bait looks like urgent assignments that echo yesterday's identity, like invitations that flatter your wounds, like arguments that would resurrect your most articulate pain. Refuse bait without drama. Affirm, "Not today," is a frequency fence. You do not owe explanations to patterns that never apologized for wasting your hours. Politeness can be a covert allegiance to entropy. Trade it for clarity seasoned with courtesy. Respect windows. Every selection opens time, slits brief alignments when people answer, doors click, traffic parts, insights condense, and if you miss a window, do not spiral, re-enter the breath and ask for the next visible slit. The loom is generous but not indulgent. It rewards participants, not spectators. Spectating your own life is a sophisticated avoidance of heat. Step into the heat until it becomes light. When doubt spikes, treat it as instrumentation, not instruction. Doubt often marks the exact edge where the new line of travel exits your prior map. Maps resist territories they did not draw. Thank doubt for its perimeter check, then run your 2% protocol. Where does the scene brighten or dull when you picture moving anyway? If it brightens, proceed at half speed with full presence. If it dulls, you selected a corridor to impress a ghost. Pivot without apology. Selection is continuous. Devotion is what prevents you from scattering across options every time sensation changes costume. Finally, anchor the day with a visible proof, not a trophy, a footprint, something you can point to at sundown and say, the line of travel advanced by this exact centimeter, a sent message, a removed object, a created page, a boundary upheld. Proof stabilizes the trajectory in your nervous system and signals the field to extend the corridor another meter while you sleep. You are not stuck. You are refining the instrument that chooses. And the moment the instrument stops lying to itself, reality rearranges out loud. You imagine yourself as a single node pushing against a stubborn world, yet you are an emitter in a living network, and networks do not change by argument. They change by interference patterns that make old rhythms uncomfortable and new rhythms obvious. Every room you enter is a wave field. Every conversation is a coupling event. You do not control people, but you can tune the carrier wave you bring so that the signal you carry survives contact without distortion. Physics is etiquette, with math behind it. Begin by noticing how rooms breathe. Some rooms exhale you open, lift, clarify. Others inhale you tighten, compress, cloud, and your body detects the difference faster than your narrative does. Trust that detection. Before you accept an invitation, run the 2% tilt with your skin. Picture your arrival. Then watch the micro-sensation at the base of your throat, the backs of your knees, the band around your diaphragm. If light increases by 2%, the room can host your next line of travel. If dimness arrives like a film over the eyes, the room is asking you to pay to be smaller. Deny the transaction. You do not owe sacrifice to rooms that cannot metabolize your coherence. Now, adjust your broadcasting protocol, because broadcasting is not volume, it is clarity under load. Enter a room with the 6 to 8 breath for 3 cycles, lower your voice half an octave, and widen peripheral vision until you can see both corners of the space without moving your head. Peripheral vision drops you from hyperfocal defense into contextual intake, and contextual intake increases your generosity because threat narrows and possibility expands. Generosity is not theatrics, it is signal hygiene. People trust signals that do not beg. Conversation is an oscillator. 2 nervous systems seeking a stable rhythm will entrain at the lowest common denominator unless someone carries a steadier metronome. Be that metronome. Pace slower than the local panic without condescension. Ask one question that upgrades the frame instead of reinforcing the loop, and resist the reflex to mirror despair to prove empathy. Mirroring despair is contagious loyalty to entropy. Empathy that rescues dignity restores phase. Practice a 3-step in-the-moment recalibration. Identify the loop. Introduce a lens. Land a verb. When a colleague cycles the same grievance, name the loop neutrally. We've circled this 3 times. Offer a lens. What would 2% brighter look like by Friday? Then land a verb. I'll draft the email in 30 minutes. Will you add the data? Loop starve when verbs arrive. The field allocates help where verbs live. Guard your edges from collective static. Group fear speaks fluent certainties, and certainties masquerade as wisdom when they are only fatigue. Do not argue. Disengage with tenderness and evidence. I hear the risk. Here's how I'm distributing load across the next 2 days. I'll report outcomes, not intentions. The network will learn to route complexity to you because you metabolize it without drama. That is not martyrdom. That is leadership as frequency. Expect pushback from identities that anchor their belonging in mutual limitation. They will call your coherence arrogance because your refusal to collapse with them reveals a choice they pretend is unavailable. Bless them and move. If you must stay, install a boundary that does not leak contempt. I can host this topic for 10 minutes if we're looking for actions. I can't host it as ritual complaint. Contempt is a corrosive carrier. It degrades your own line of travel first. Use objects as network beacons. Place one clear symbol key, spiral, golden stare, portal eye, where the group tends to glance, and keep it unspoken. Geometry works below debate. The limbic system recognizes pattern safety without needing a sermon. In a meeting, a single clean diagram that compresses complexity into an elegant motion will move more mass than 100 anxious paragraphs. The loom respects economy. Remember latency in social systems. Not everyone updates at your speed. Not every thread can take your current tension. Apply progressive load like a good trainer. Introduce a change at tolerable amplitude. Stabilize, then increase by 1 degree. When someone finally mirrors your new frequency, mark it with ceremony so the nervous system records the upgrade as safe. Ceremony can be small. A deliberate thank you, a shared minute of quiet, the return of a borrowed object with care. Ceremony locks coherence into memory. Prioritize the few who amplify you without flattery. Allies are not cheerleaders. Allies are tuning forks who ring truer when you strike them. Build a microgrid of such humans and meet them at regular intervals without agenda. Only hygiene, breath, review of proofs, alignment checks, 1 hard question each. A microgrid tilts probability across the whole lattice because the network feels a stable alternative and begins to imitate it for relief. When you must walk into heavy space hospitals, negotiations, rooms that have learned to pray to urgency, perform the simplest protection. Soften the jaw, drop the shoulders by a centimeter, breathe 6 to 8, and silently say, I am porous to signal, not to static. Then offer 1 act of unadvertised order. Pick up a fallen object, align the chairs by 1 inch, refill a glass, close a rattling window. Small order recruits large order. The field loves witnesses who also tidy. You came here thinking the world was an obstacle course. It is a wave field waiting for a cleaner emitter. Every time you refuse panic's tempo, you raise the room's available intelligence by a margin that cannot be measured in applause but can be measured in outcomes. Keep your carrier wave steady. Watch the network reroute around you like water finding a deeper channel. And feel how the life that once ignored you begins to ask you for settings. You treat memory as a museum, yet it behaves like wet clay every time you touch it. And every touch is an edit. The nervous system files as truth if you pair it with sufficient coherence. The past is not behind you. It is an algorithm running predictive text across the next sentence of your life. And algorithms can be retrained. Identity is not a noun. It is cached momentum. Momentum can be redirected. Begin with the biology you carry. When you recall an event, the trace destabilizes for a brief reconsolidation window, minutes to hours, in which the protein scaffolding that holds the memory can be rewritten by context, emotion, and meaning. This is not wishful thinking. This is how fear becomes phobia, and how phobia dissolves into mere caution. You have used this power unconsciously to fortify pain. Now you will use it deliberately to free wattage. Choose 1 memory that governs a present limit, the meeting where your voice died, the room where love turned into a contract with scarcity, the moment your body learned that ambition equals exile. Do not hunt for maximal trauma, hunt for maximal leverage. An episode with clear edges and recurrent echoes. Name its simplest title: The Closed Throat, The Cold Desk, The Door That Didn't Open. Because simple names give you handles. Handles let you move weight. Enter the 6 to 8 breath for 3 cycles. Widen your peripheral vision until you can see the room's corners without effort, and bring the scene online at low resolution. You are not here to relive it. You are here to rescore it. Add one stabilizing axis your younger self lacked: a witness who loves truth, a window that opens, a hand on the table that belongs to the future you who can speak. Do not lie about what occurred. Do not coat it in glitter. Change only the geometry of support. Memory worships geometry more than slogans. Now alter posture by 1 degree as you hold the image. Lower the shoulders a centimeter, soften the jaw, drop the tongue from the palate, and let the eyes micro-saccade across the edges of the scene to signal exploration, not freeze. As posture changes, autonomic tone shifts. As tone shifts, the meaning engine revises its caption. Quietly rename the file from "I was silenced" to "I was unsupplied." Unsupplied invites logistics. Silenced invites doom. Inject a verb that did not exist then but exists now. I request the window. I set the glass down. I ask for 5 beats before answering. Speak it aloud, 1 octave lower than habit. Your limbic system recognizes lower frequencies as authority. Your cortex follows authority it trusts. Pair the verb with the breath and stamp the scene with a symbol key. Spiral, stare, some geometry. You have been training into your field, so the body can tag the moment as belonging to the new pattern. The loom responds to consistent glyphs, the way code responds to syntax. Close the eyes and run a 2% tilt test on the edited scene. If the body brightens, even slightly, anchor it with a physical act in the present touch, the edge of the desk. Stand and sit once, press the palm to the chest, so the nervous system links idea to tissue. If the body dulls, you decorated the wound. Strip it back and subtract, flourish, until only the smallest usable upgrade remains. Coherence is obtained by honesty, not by theater. Next, update the contract you wrote in panic. Most memories metastasize into rules. Don't ask, don't try, don't be seen, overperform to belong. Audit the rule and replace it with an operational counterpart that preserves safety while expanding range. Ask with breath, try with time limits. Be seen in rooms that can metabolize it. Perform to prototype, not to purchase love. Write the rule on paper in a sentence so clean, a tired version of you would obey it at 2 a.m. Tape it near a threshold. Read it aloud at crossings. Repetition teaches the gatekeeper. Schedule a proof inside the next 24 hours that collides gently with the old prediction. If the memory claims your voice fails, leave a 45-second voice note to an ally stating 1 concrete request. If the memory claims rooms reject you, enter a low-stakes room for 5 minutes, breathe 6 to 8, and perform 1 act of order. Align 2 chairs, clear a surface, offer 1 crisp verb, then leave without apology. The field respects small experiments that change state more than grand oaths that exhaust chemistry. Expect the sentinel to protest with counterfeit sophistication. This is revisionism. This is childish. This won't hold under real pressure. Answer with metrics. I ran 3 micro-tests this week. My heart recovered faster. My voice stayed stable. 2 doors opened. The sentinel quiets when numbers arrive because numbers smell like home to fearful brains. Give it data, then keep moving. Curate incoming evidence like a scientist. Create a running log titled "Contradictions to the Old Story," and each evening add 3 entries, however small. Spoke truth with calm in the 11:15 call. Stranger held the door without price. Body asked for water before caffeine, and I obeyed. Tiny proofs perform constructive interference. After a week, you will feel the click of phase lock as the new caption stabilizes in tissue. That click is identity turning from noun to verb without the drama of reinvention. Forgiveness arrives as a side effect of accurate mapping. When the old scene loses its mythical voltage, the people inside it shrink from gods to organisms with overloaded circuits, and you are free to bless them without re-entering the contract. Blessing is not reunion. It is the release of unnecessary tension from your threads. Stand inside your updated casing for a minute. Notice the lightness where compulsion lived. Notice the way the room answers less defensively. You did not erase the past. You reassigned its authority. And the moment authority moves, the field stops routing around you and begins routing through you. You have edited memory and reweighted meaning. But anyone can feel coherent in a quiet room, and the field tests phase not in sanctuary but in turbulence, where old contracts come dressed as emergencies. Pressure is not the enemy. Pressure is the kiln that vitrifies your new geometry, so it won't dissolve in weather. You are not here to avoid heat. You are here to hold pattern in it. Start with the physics of the moment, when demand surges, phone vibrating with stacked requests, calendar compressing, voices asking for an instant answer, and notice how your body attempts to purchase control with speed. Speed is a counterfeit of clarity. Speed is panic trying on competence. Pause for a single 6 to 8 cycle, lower your voice by half an octave, and widen peripheral vision until edges return. The nervous system, seeing edges, stops screaming. The prefrontal cortex, unstrangled, returns to work. This is how you defend coherence without a speech. Install a protocol for impact windows because pressure is predictable, although events are not. An impact window is the first 90 seconds after surprise. In that window, your predictive model scrambles to rewrite the map, and the sentinel identity begs for old rules. You will not negotiate with ghosts. You will perform 3 acts only. Name the type of surprise in 7 words or less. Choose the smallest state, changing verb, and time. Bound the next check-in. Supply delayed. Reorder route. Reconvene at 14. 7 words are surgical because adjectives try to seduce you into drama. Verbs cut you free. Bring the triad council online. Head, heart, gut at speed. Head scans for actual constraints and not imagined ones. Heart checks for relational coherence and dignity under load. Gut evaluates threat realism and energy cost. If the gut spikes red but the data shows amber, you are reliving rather than living. Run 1 breath cycle and update the legend. If the heart dims because you are about to trade beauty for efficiency, slow the move by 10% and keep elegance in the architecture. Elegance is not vanity, it is low-friction math. The field favors designs that do not wound their builders. Expect the invitation to abandon your line of travel because an opening appeared that flatters the wound you just retired. The old contract will offer you speed, attention, and a familiar kind of safety if you betray your recent vow. Decline without theatrics, not compatible with present architecture, is a complete sentence. You are not rejecting people. You are protecting pattern tension that took weeks to set. Patterns fracture when you confuse opportunity with compatibility. Anchor your carrier wave in the simplest visible act. Under load, neurotic minds fantasize about perfect plans because fantasies produce the chemistry of progress without its substance. You will trade fantasy for proof. Pick 1 micro-unit that moves mass, send the email with a single crisp ask, remove the decoy task from the board, write the 2-sentence brief, reorder the room by an inch, and do it with your shoulders lowered by a centimeter and your jaw soft. The body posture is not accessory, it is the switch that keeps your limbic system from flooding your mission with noise. Use objects as stabilizers in the storm. The symbol you have been training, spiral, key, stare, portal eye, now graduates from decor to instrument. Place it within sightline. Touch it for 1 breath. Let the glyph compress your instruction set into 3 words. Observe, host, enact. Observe, without flinch. Host, without absorption. Enact without apology. Symbols outpace language under pressure because the limbic system reads geometry faster than it reads grammar. Calibrate your social coupling. Turbulence tempts you to outsource calm or to broadcast panic as proof you care. You will do neither. You will couple only to those who entrain up. When briefing allies, deliver clarity, not cortisol. Here's the constraint, here's the 2% move, here's the check-in. When confronted by contagion panic, offer 1 structural verb and end the loop. Your refusal to feed chaos is not coldness, it is stewardship of shared bandwidth. Practice the discipline of graceful exits. Not every fight deserves your hinge, and not every room can metabolize your phase. If a conversation degrades into ritual complaint or status theater, set your boundary without contempt. I can host actions, not spirals, and step away. Contempt fractures your interior first, bless, and move. The network learns from exits performed without poison. Remember, latency even here. Some results will refuse to manifest on your schedule because the field needs to reroute alliances and soften priors in humans you haven't met. Latency is not failure, it is incubation in transit. During latency, you maintain rituals precisely because nothing seems to validate them. The kiln does not glow for your entertainment. It hardens clay on its own time. End each pressure cycle with a debrief that honors chemistry and records proof. Ask, where did I hold phase? Where did I leak? What micro adjustment would reduce friction by 2% tomorrow? Log 3 proofs of non-dramatic progress: boundary upheld, state changed, dignity preserved, and let the sentinel read the numbers until it stops mistaking adrenaline for competence. Competence is the quiet that remains when adrenaline leaves the room. Feel the click again inside your chest as the hinge holds under weight. That click is not bravado. It is phase lock tested in weather. And when phase holds in weather, the loom trusts you with heavier threads, because you have shown you can move mass without shattering the pattern you came to build. You have held phase under weather and watched doors answer the quiet of your posture, but architecture remains theoretical until it walks, and walking is the moment geometry becomes ethics. The second your private coherence writes public consequences in rooms that did not ask to believe. You are not chasing transcendence anymore. You are installing reliability, which is holiness with a work schedule. Reliability is how prophecy stops being entertainment and turns into infrastructure. Begin with the unit of daybreak, where the field is generous to meticulous beginnings. Before the first screen, give your body a minute of kinetic intention so the sentinel doesn't steal the morning with simulated urgency. 10 slow steps, 6 to 8 breath, shoulders lowering by a centimeter, jaw softening, peripheral vision wide enough to catch both corners of a room. Then ask a single, embarrassingly practical question. What one act, performed without ceremony, changes the system state by evening? The answer arrives smaller than ego prefers. Trust small. Small is the lever that moves mass without injuring the hinge. Convert that act into a contract that even a tired version of you will honor. Clear, time-bound, measurable, free of adjectives. By 10:30, I will send the 2-sentence brief that roots the project into motion. At 14, I will close the legacy tab that consumes wattage and opens no doors. At 17:40, I will walk 10 minutes without headphones to let latent insights condense. Contracts like these convince the limbic system that the world is governable, and when the limbic system relaxes, the loom assigns you heavier threads because you metabolize tension without leaking harm. Install witness without performance. Choose one ally whose presence stabilizes your metronome and share proofs, not theatrics. 3 bullet points: state changed, boundary upheld, dignity preserved. The ally reciprocates. You call this accountability. The field calls it coupling 2 oscillators into constructive interference. Beware the confessional that seeks sympathy instead of structure. It corrodes phase and trains your biology to outsource steadiness. A clean witness is a mirror that doesn't steal your face. Design your environment as if it were an instrument, because it is. Place one glyph where your eyes land when attention frays a key, a spiral, a golden stare, a portal eye, and anchor it to an action verb you have actually used this week. Observe, host, enact. Replace motivational slogans with operating instructions written in the tone of a calm air traffic controller. Reduce load by 2%. Select the line of travel. Exit ritual complaint. Rooms trained by such sentences begin to behave like colleagues who respect your mission. Transact with time as a sculptor, not as prey. Block 90-minute deep work corridors guarded by a 30-second ritual exhale, lower voice, soften gaze, glance at the glyph, whisper the verb, and protect them like the vow that keeps your house from becoming a museum of everyone else's emergencies. When interruption arrives, which it will, do not dramatize, timestamp the return, leave a breadcrumb, and perform a micro-proof before you re-enter. Returning well is a higher art than never being interrupted. The network learns your rhythm and starts to schedule itself around your integrity. Feed your instrument with beauty on purpose. Beauty is not indulgence. It is low, friction, coherence. A single glass of water drunk attentively, a plant tended, a chair aligned by 1 inch. These micro-acts tune the viscera to the proposition that order is available, and tuned viscera rescue executive function when the map tries to collapse into chaos. You are not a machine that occasionally rests. You are a living metronome that occasionally accelerates. Rest is not the reward for completion. It is the fuel for precision. Train your refusal. Not every request deserves your hinge, and some platitudes masquerade as kindness while taxing your threads. Practice sentences that are both merciful and exact. I can host this conversation if we land a verb in 10 minutes. I'm unavailable for spirals. Here's my next review point. This corridor does not match present architecture. Spoken a half octave lower than habit, these sentences alter room physics without humiliation. Refusal delivered in clean frequency is a public service. It keeps the network from rehearsing its addictions on your time. Let your work product carry the same geometry as your breath. Documents with unnecessary adjectives are heavy. Plans with single verbs are aerodynamic. Emails with one crisp ask and a timestamp move mass. Meetings that end with declared ownership and a check-in time create probability funnels. When your outputs embody coherence, the field amplifies them beyond your immediate reach because they require less energy to join. Minimalism here is not aesthetic. It is physics. Make evening a reckoning instead of a collapse. Sit for 4 minutes and log proofs in the simplest ledger you can tolerate. Evidence of rearrangement. 3 lines tonight. Every night. Unexpected reply aligned with vow. Boundary held without contempt. New line of travel advanced by 1 centimeter. Read them aloud in a low voice so the body records the day as competence, not as adrenaline residue. Competence repeated becomes character. Character repeated becomes atmosphere. Atmosphere bends events. And then offer one blessing, unadvertised, to the lattice that held you. Return an item to order. Send a quiet thank you. Solve a tiny problem without claiming credit. Blessing is not piety. It is thread lubrication. Systems reward what tends them. You are no longer seeking signs, you are issuing settings. Rooms now adjust when you enter because you carry a carrier wave the nervous system of a city wants to entrain to, and people who were waiting for permission to believe in clean motion begin to move because you made belief obsolete. Hold the line for a few more breaths. The edge has sharpened by a degree you can actually feel, and in the widening quiet, the loom draws a corridor so plain no one will call it mystical, though you will know exactly what made it appear. You keep thinking arrival is a trumpet, yet arrival is the quiet in your bones when the room obeys the line you've been holding, a hush that feels less like victory than like correct gravity. The loom doesn't crown you, it calibrates you. Calibration is the reward, and in this exact breath, the calibration completes by 1 clean degree. Stand at a threshold any door will do, and let your heel meet the floor as if you were signing your name where reality requires a witness. Inhale for 6, exhale for 8. Soften the jaw, widen the eyes until both corners of the scene return, and listen for the hum that has followed you since the first sentence. It isn't outside. It is the carrier wave your coherence now emits without effort. Rooms you have not met are already re-indexing to it. People who do not know your name are moving a chair, opening a window, pausing before they answer, because the lattice has felt your setting and wants the relief. What you called stuck was the latency between your new geometry and the world's old cache. Cache cleared. Proof will arrive in small, exact increments. The email that lands with the tone you sent into the network weeks ago. The conversation that refuses ritual complaint and lands a verb. The invitation that does not flatter your wound, but fits your architecture. These are not omens to hoard. They are instructions to continue. You will be tempted to escalate spectacle. Resist. The field doubles down on the quiet that survives pressure. Keep your hinge rituals plain. Keep your verbs unadorned. Keep your refusals merciful, and your boundaries tonal rather than theatrical. Elegance is how power behaves when it does not need to shout. Your biology understands this now. Your breath no longer negotiates with panic. Your posture no longer petitions for permission. Your voice has learned the octave that doors respect. Remember the blind spot that began this transmission. It never was a flaw. It was a mercy window where the loom could rearrange without your interference, and now that your attention no longer bruises what it touches, the veil thins. You will see earlier. You will choose sooner. You will waste less wattage naming what you already know. Call that prophecy if you need a word. The truth is simpler. You are in phase with the math of your life. Before you step through, leave a blessing where you stand, align a chair by an inch, send a quiet thank you, return an object to order so the room remembers that you passed and upgrades itself by a fraction. Then take one step only, the smallest that still changes state. Small is not timid here. Small is surgical. Small is how the loom writes new corridors into the city without tearing the fabric. You asked for a sign, you became the setting. You asked for a path, you became the hinge. You asked for a different world. The field answered with different you. Hold the line for one more breath. Feel the click in your chest and walk. The pattern will move with you because you are the architecture now, and architecture, once it walks, rewrites what a day can hold.